Good afternoon, beautiful people. It is Wednesday afternoon, year 2021, in the month of November. This is what, the 3rd? And a little impromptu show today that has to be done. What we are going to go over today is one of the most damning articles, among the most that I've ever seen. You are going to see how Dr. Anthony Fauci, the medical industrial complex, which has been working with GP120 and the HIV vaccine, was working extensively with Dr. Nancy Haigwood much of the 1990s, which, strangely enough, she had some chance encounter where Kappa Kappa was spray painted on her fence, and a notebook was sort of stolen for a little while, which is proof that Dr. Bruce Ivins was an unhinged radical maniac who did the Amerithrax. She's literally the character witness, a Fauci acolyte, someone who was doing movies and books with Plotkin, who would basically inject anything that wiggled. Any human soul possible was a human experimentation subject for him. Working with Dr. Robert Nowinski, who started off in those labs in New York City with Dr. Alice Moore and Dr. Chester Southam. Check out what they did. And then he worked to the University of Wisconsin and did all his biotech startups in Seattle. VaxGen Incorporated. And Dr. Lawrence Corey, Dr. Anthony Fauci's best friend, Nowinski, Corey, the one person who just happened to have some crazy, stupid, negative smear about why Bruce Ivins, a man who was married for 35 years, who gave everything to his church, had 2 children, was a crazy maniac. A Dr. Haigwood? A Dr. Haigwood, whose father was a military corporal, commander, very high up in the Marines. I think might have been part of helping Robert Swan Mueller's shot in the butt medal out of Vietnam. Yes, he was a big commander in that conflict. This is the group. And of course, it was Haigwood's, that commander's daughter, Haigwood, who is working directly with Robert Swan Mueller III and the FBI's investigation. The FBI's investigation of Dr. Bruce Ivins. It was some Hatfield guy who's a total insider. It's more him later. They changed it around in 2006. Suddenly, it was all about Bruce Ivins. Really? They changed it. Literally weeks after an oddly NIAID-funded project that Ivins worked on. I think one of the only NIAID projects he worked on that involved a doctor, what's his name? Larry V. I always get his first name. Lawler, Lawler. Yeah, you should know him because he was UNMC. He was a longtime collaborator, Dr. Sina Bavari, and of course, Dr. Yarlberg. You know, that Dr. Yarlberg who had a sudden change of memory just after Robert Swan Mueller decided that maybe it was going to be Bruce Ivins, and suddenly Yarlberg says, you know what? Maybe it really wasn't weaponized after all. It had to be Bruce Ivins. And then Bruce Ivins, someone who worked with anthrax for 30 years. You think someone who, a doctor, one of the top doctors in the world, possibly in history, working with anthrax, you think that he doesn't know any better way to commit suicide than to overdose on off-the-shelf Tylenol? Where he's going to be throwing up and vomiting and horrible pain for a day or two? You think he can't find which is, by the way, one of the biggest sins of his faith is to commit suicide. Do you really think that he would choose such a long, painful, arduous way to go? Being one of the anthrax experts of history? Really? Well, that's probably because if he was going to be assassinated, you can't use prescription strength medicine because that means it's going to need a prescription and that can be traced. I'm stating it. And I will go to the grave believing this. I've just flipped the switch in my mind. Dr. Bruce Ivins is innocent. He was innocent, and he will always be innocent. Dr. Bruce Ivins was innocent. And that flailing jerk who wrote a book called Mirage Man couldn't do any of this background check. How much stuff did he have handed to him on a silver platter to smear this man? They use a photo of Bruce. There's only 4 photos you can really find on him. They chose a photo of Bruce Ivins with his head thrown back playing a piano to suggest that he was some sort of unhinged maniac, power tripping whatever, who just wanted to show the world how powerful he was going to be. And then in that moment, he's at his church. He was the music director in the morning. They literally chose a photo of him singing about his love of Jesus Christ as the proof to convince Americans that he is an unhinged maniac. How? I don't have the words to describe the level of psychopathy we are dealing with here. Now, of course, it is actually on us to change this. Pointing fingers in and of itself does not change anything. I don't know how to reach out and to win back over people who are absolutely insane psychopaths, though. That is the level that they will go through. So in today's, we are going to read an article from Business Journals in 1997, several years before Haigwood, who they describe, by the way, if you look at the articles, they described Haigwood as a graduate student because supposedly her notebook was stolen or some stupid story like that by Bruce Ivins at University of North Carolina, where Ivins never even lived. He went to school up in Cincinnati. Oh, but he had a brother that he didn't talk to for 30 years. Oh, that's the proof that possibly maybe he just happened to swing by her house and spray paint Kappa Kappa on her fence. And that is why all of the bioterrorism, that nonsense, all of the crimes of Amerithrax, let's put it on Bruce Ivins. And then let's throw away the evidence. Let's destroy the evidence because of one of the other lawsuits of one of the other victims. To the family of Bruce Ivins, you will be vindicated. Your father, your husband will be vindicated. Bruce Ivins was innocent. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, if you do not stand up for this, contact me. What can I do to change your heart? Why are you doing this? Is your psychopathic, godless pursuit of genetic research really that far over that is what you are willing to do? Please find it in your heart to change soon, now, for all of us. Here's the deal. This is going to happen. Bruce Ivins will someday be shown innocent. He will someday, without a doubt, be known by everyone to be innocent. It will happen. You will pay the consequences for this, here or in another world. You have an opportunity now to change the world. I don't have that opportunity. I'm begging you to do it. It's going to happen. And you, your children, your grandchildren, eventually someone is going to realize that you were among the group that set this man up. It's going to happen. It may happen after I die, after my children are dead. It's going to happen, though. It is up to you, though. You have an option. You have choices that you can make. And I beg you to find it in your heart to admit the insanity of the last 100 years, this insane search of genetics. We are going to read this article right now, and I don't have my chat window open. And then we're going to do some chats for a little while. By the way, my name is Mark Gulak. It is a beautiful day outside. And I know a lot of people in the government and in the research community know this. You know it. You know it. God is my witness. You know it. So let's just dive right into it and read this. This is just one article, but the timing on this article, 4 years. Isn't it September 23rd? 10 days after 9/11? No, 11 days after 9/11, Nancy Haigwood is in Washington Post talking about HIV vaccines. The Ameritrax didn't even happen yet, and she was already getting platform boosted at that time. And yes, when things are removed from newspapers.com and available on the source sites, that's how you know that someone was paid to delete. So we have that as well. So we know it matters to you guys. All right, so thank you for joining my audience here. Let us just read this article here. Of course, we've already saved it on multiple sites before we do the show. So there's Nancy Haigwood, 1951. Born 1951. This is about a 10-year-old photo of her. Oh, yeah, and she's done, one of her top co-authors is Maury Gardner. You know, the dude from, was it California Davis, who was the mentor of Robert Malone. You will find, by the way, Jill Glasspool Malone and Robert Malone did source Haigwood several times in different pieces of work. Doesn't mean they work together. It's just a sourcing, but they are networked together. I just want to put that one out there. Okay, so here's the article here. It's in bizjournals.com. This came from one of the Puget Sound business journals. June 1st, 1997. What was that? Over 4 years before 9/11. Biotech veteran Nowinski touts AIDS vaccine effort. Amid skepticism, millions sought for VaxGen trials. So what are we talking about? So this article here is about a Dr. Robert Nowinski. And I've spoken extensively about this fellow. No Wikipedia page. Doesn't mean he's important, but in this case, it means he's a critical person to understand as far as the network goes. He grew up in New York City, seemed to be a pretty ambitious kid. I'm not sure exactly where his heart lies. Nonetheless, his career trajectory is one of fascination to me because he started off mentoring at Memorial Sloan Kettering and the New York universities in the lab of Dr. Chester Southam. Yeah, that Southam who did all of that medical experimentation. And also was a mentor of, or at least Southam was, of Alice Moore. And then from there, went to University of Wisconsin. And that's Lederberg's jumping point, kickoff point. And then he went to Seattle in the late 1970s. He was one of the big virologists, really the virologist teacher at the University of Washington for quite a few years in the 70s. Started a bunch of companies in the 1980s. And I think Nowinski and his role with, again, non-consensual medical experimentation, or at least people not being aware of the risks at the Fred Hutch Institute. And I call that episode Nowinski and Hutch. That one got me a big strike over maybe a little bit less than a year ago right now. But this article is about him and his pursuit of the HIV/AIDS vaccine, as well as VaxGen and the anthrax vaccine. So we're talking about HIV vaccines and a little bit about anthrax vaccines as well here in the 1990s. Oddly enough, it just so happens that anthrax was the weapon of choice in Ameritrax in that bioterror event of 2001. So let's begin. While President Clinton promotes a goal of developing an AIDS vaccine in 10 years, a company led by Seattle biotechnology entrepreneur Dr. Robert Charles Nowinski, born 1945, and by the way, okay, sound good? Okay. Born 1945, is raising tens of millions of dollars to finance immediate large-scale testing of just such a potential vaccine. All right, so let's. There's Mr. Nowinski right there. Again, oddly enough, one of the best photos I can find from him is at a convention in the 1980s, 1987. with talking to Bill Gates. Now, I think Bill Gates is on the spectrum. I think his SAT scores were faked, and I think mostly he's used as a cutout by the genetic industrial complex, whatever you want to call it, because they want you looking at him and not Bill Gates Sr. And they know that Bill Gates will say whatever he's told to say, because that's who he is. And he's just a perfect lightning rod for all the hate and all the anger and all the fear. Anyways, that's Dr. Charles Nowinski. We have a page on him. Let's go back. Nowinski and stockbroker George Steiner of Prudential Securities, Seattle office, are running private investors for VaxGen Incorporated, which plans final clinical trials in 7,500 American volunteers and another 3,000 in Thailand. Interesting that Thailand is just so happens where, wait for it, you'll find out later, Dr. Haigwood's parents spent extensive time. The Thailand theater going back to the Vietnam War. Dr. Nancy Haigwood's father was there. Matter of fact, you can find photos of Nancy Haigwood herself in the 1960s doing a lot of her early high school level science work and in Thailand, which is where her mom was a big fan of. So the Haigwoods seem to be very fond of Thailand. And the genetic research industrial complex really likes to use people from Thailand for medical experimentation. The South San Francisco, California-based company already has raised at least $18 million and hoped to reach $36.75 million, according to papers filed in March with the State Securities Division. Steiner said last week that VaxGen is, quote, very close, unquote, to completing its money hunt, but he declined to further comment. Some experts are skeptical of the VaxGen effort, however, saying that the company's so-called GP120, that's glycoprotein 120 vaccine, has been superseded by newer approaches, more likely to protect against AIDS. The National Institutes of Health decided in 1994 not to fund Phase 3 clinical trials of VaxGen's vaccine, which was developed by biotech powerhouse Genentech Incorporated. Genentech itself, after putting $50 million in 8 years into its AIDS vaccine, cut its financial exposure in December of 1995 by spinning off the research and development programs as VaxGen. Genentech is contributing to VaxGen 300,000 units of the vaccine, but only $2 million in cash. VaxGen executives, who did not return phone calls, reckon that even a partial preventative to AIDS would be welcome. Where have I heard that before? Let's just jab people with this for slightly reduced symptoms. The company's private placement prospectus obtained from a potential investor says the Food and Drug Administration might even approve a vaccine that protects 30% of recipients against AIDS. Such a vaccine could be given to healthcare professionals, law enforcement personnel, and others who face on-the-job exposure to HIV, the document says. Clinton's declaration this month of a 10-year push to find an AIDS vaccine received a lukewarm reception, in part because it provided no new funding. And AIDS researcher Robert Gallo, Gallo's in this one also. We got one article. You got Nowinski, you got Gallo, wow. You got Haigwood, wow. And, as we'll see later, you got Corey, Fauci's best friend. Oh, wow, wow, oh, wow, wow. Oh, my goodness. Let's get back up to where we started. So, and AIDS researcher Robert Gallo, a co-discoverer of the HIV virus. Remember, and you know who helped Gallo carry the... Do you know who helped Gallo carry the HIV back to the United States from France? Can you believe it was Maury Gardner? Can you believe it was Maury Gardner? Dr. Robert Malone's mentor. and someone he was like 5 or 6 in the number of shared publications with Nancy Haigwood. You know, the one witness who said that it must have been Bruce Ivins because he stole her notebook and spray painted Kappa Kappa on her fence. Do these people really seem to give at all about right now about Bruce Ivins? Maybe they are losing sleep over it. Maybe they are. But they need to publicly repent this. They need to publicly admit what they know. Because children right now are being exposed to medical experimentation. Millions of American children are going to be exposed to gene therapy for something that is no risk to them, because we do not have a clear, transparent record of the past. Because sins such as what was said about Dr. Bruce Ivins, amongst many other sins, is what led to children today will have their lives ruined because of this. Not all, many will be fine, but thousands and thousands will. Now, Nowinski himself is controversial in the biotechnology industry. He founded Genetic Systems Corporation, ICOS Corp, and Pathogenesis Corporation, all in the Seattle area, and private investors in those companies, large startup financings generally have profited. But his launch 'em and leave 'em approach has drawn criticism that Nowinski is more interested in starting companies than shepherding them through to success. GP120 vaccines have advanced the furthest in human testing, but the shortcomings uncovered in those tests have led many researchers to conclude GP120 alone won't conquer AIDS. Nancy Haigwood, a virologist at Seattle Biomedical Research Institute, who previously worked at Chiron Incorporated, developing that company's version of a GP120 vaccine, says, "I hope that GP120 is at least partially effective. It could be. However, I think we're better off to spend our money to develop vaccines that produce a broader immunity," unquote. Although GP120 does cause a significantly... And by the way, so now Nancy Haigwood is described as a virologist, a lead virologist at Seattle Biomedical Institute, helping to develop a GP120 vaccine. Several years after this article, she will be referred to as a graduate student. An innocent graduate student who was harassed and had her notebook stolen by Bruce Ivins. Mean, unhinged, going mad Bruce Ivins. And that's why he did Amerithrax. Listen to Nancy Haigwood. Although GP120 does cause a significant immune response, Dr. Nancy Haigwood, in the future known as a graduate student who had her notebook stolen by Bruce Ivins, she said, quote, "We already know from safety trials that it's not completely efficacious." What kind of stupid word is that? That's my own commentary. Because some people who have been vaccinated with Genentech product and the very similar Chiron product during safety trials became infected. My goodness gracious. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like the crap that people are being injected with right now to slightly reduce their symptoms, maybe sometimes, against coronavirus? Isn't that a funny thing? For many researchers, said Dr. Nancy Haigwood, now known as a virologist, but in the future, an innocent graduate student who had her fence spray painted with Kappa Kappa, quote, "Life has definitely moved beyond the subunit GP120, unquote. AIDSvax, the vaccine championed by Nowinski's company, is termed a subunit GP120 vaccine because it uses a portion of the virus's glycoprotein coat with a molecular weight of 120,000. Wow. A portion of the that sounds an awful lot like Novavax to me, everybody. That sounds an awful lot like a Novavax. synthetic vaccine, a synthetic virus with just the coating to help create an immune response. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that they were doing this stuff with HIV 20 years ago? Isn't it funny that coronavirus has a couple of glycoproteins with HIV, how would you say, construction methods within them? Isn't that a little bit odd? And isn't it a little bit odd the same people that are saying your children need to be injected? In addition, safety tests on 1,093 human volunteers showed no serious side effects. So immediately they didn't die. So that means it's safe. And almost all of them developed high levels of antibody against HIV. That doesn't mean it worked, though. Such antibodies have been shown in laboratory tests outside of the body to neutralize HIV, the prospectus states. But the prospectus also acknowledges that among a high-risk group of 102 vaccine recipients, 6 did become HIV infected during a 3-year monitoring period. So they measure the immune response by measuring the antibodies, but they still get sick anyways. My goodness. It's almost a repeat of coronavirus right now. It's the exact same thing. Isn't it odd that a bat and a pangolin had a roll in the hay and they produced something that's doing the exact same thing that was being tested in laboratories 20 years ago? Ha! That's amazing. And what an incredible coincidence that is. The document blames that, quote, breakthrough, unquote, effect. A breakthrough effect on the existence of different strains of HIV, and says clinical trials will include mixtures of vaccine variants aimed at different HIV mutations. Haigwood, Dr. Nancy Haigwood, highly esteemed virologist, who in the future will be simply referred to as an innocent graduate student who was concerned about Bruce Ivins and was the main character witness that he was the person who did all of the anthrax himself as a lone wolf. That Dr. Nancy Haigwood said the GP120 vaccine's immune effect in chimpanzees has little predictive value. Both the Chiron and Genentech products did protect chimpanzees. Probably Dr. Maury Gardner helped out with that one. But, quote, we already know that it doesn't, unquote, work in humans to the same degree, said Haigwood. One setback to the GP120 vaccine came in December when University of North Carolina researchers halted a test of Genentech's GP120 vaccine in patients already infected with HIV. They stopped halfway through the intended 3-year trial after finding the vaccine didn't show the disease's progress. Didn't slow the disease's progress, excuse me. However, that failure as a therapeutic vaccine doesn't necessarily reflect on GP120's usefulness as a preventative. Observers raise another issue as well. Antibodies attack the form of the HIV virus that appears outside the cell. But another type of immune response, called CTL, apparently is needed to attack HIV once it burrows inside normal human cells to begin replicating. Doctors Matt Meddorf and Dr. Lawrence A. Corey, who is Dr. Anthony Fauci's best friend and just happens to be the doctor who is running all of the trials for the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 vaccines. The doctor who is running all of the trials for SARS-CoV-2, that doctor is mentioned here. Both modes of transmission must be addressed for a vaccine to be effective, said a recent status report on HIV vaccines by Drs. Matt Meldorf and Dr. Lawrence A. Corey, both affiliated with the federally funded AIDS vaccine evaluation unit run by University of Washington and Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and also administratively overseen by Dr. Rebecca Yellow Rain Katz's mom. Doesn't mention that part, but that's something that people who do research know. It's not that hard to do this, everybody. It really isn't that hard. And I'm not talking to my audience. I'm talking those other people. We're almost done here. And I just I got my chat window over there. I just want to make sure that there weren't any exclamation marks. I'm having this audio issue recently, or sometimes it just totally goes robot. Various trials of GP120 vaccines, quote, have rarely elicited, unquote, that second type of response, according to the report. Alternative approaches to creating immunity to HIV are in the early stages of testing. Dr. Nancy Haigwood, highly respected, esteemed virologist at the University of Washington, who's in the future referred to as an innocent graduate student who was harassed and made slightly uncomfortable, possibly by Dr. Bruce Ivins, and therefore is the proof that he did Amerithrax all by himself. He's a terrorist, unhinged. That Dr. Nancy Haigwood said, there are some products that do appear to provide a broader immune response and a more robust response. By the way, she's more into pushing the, instead of the Novavax, she's definitely leaning, I think, a little bit more towards the gene therapy type here. But we'll discover more about that later. The AIDS vaccine evaluation units, and yes, that was with extreme oversight by Dr. Rebecca Yellow Rain Katz, mom, who worked with Fauci for nearly 30 years, and who's, by the way, dad was a big part of running the Red Cross blood supply. Listed, and Yellow Rain Katz. Isn't she involved right now? Isn't she on CNN a few times and other channels telling us about... She told us that we were going to have a breakout in the United States 2 days beforehand. Obviously knowing Mr. Matthew Pottinger. The AIDS vaccine evaluation unit's recent report listed 13 candidate HIV vaccines, among them the 4 GP120 vaccines. Among the more promising prospects, according to the report, are those that pack a double punch, combining a subunit vaccine like GP120 with a vaccine based on HIV and viral DNA spliced into another virus. Wouldn't it just be cool if someday there was, a bat and a pig, or, who knows what kind of sexual encounter created a novel coronavirus, which the media could hype as so scary that people would be presented with any single type of vaccine they wanted to take, and therefore the different methods of the vaccine could be compared against each other just to see which one is more effective? That would be really useful if something like that were to happen. It just so happens that every single person mentioned in this article 20 years later was involved in that. The exception of Dr. Bruce Ivins, who committed suicide. Someone who worked with anthrax for 30 years committed suicide by ingesting Tylenol. And not even the type with codeine, regular off-the-shelf Tylenol. 24 hours of throwing up, vomiting, and stomach cramps. One of the most painful ways to go out you can imagine. Don't question that, otherwise you're a conspiracy theorist. He was mean. He made Haigwood uncomfortable. Among the more promising prospects, okay, we read that. If GP120 turns out to produce some partial immunity in humans, it could be part of some future package of several vaccines, says Dr. Nancy Haigwood. That she will support. Doesn't say that she will not support a good person like Dr. Bruce Ivins. Matter of fact, she goes on to allow Dr. Bruce Ivins playing the keyboard, in a morning church service, singing about his love of God, his love of Christ, as a proof that he's an unhinged maniac solely responsible for Amerithrax. The same Nancy Haigwood, how many marriages did she have? She's on her third marriage right now. The ones that I can count. Maybe even 4. That's the person. Look, people make the bad call sometimes when getting married, but oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so there's so much more we're going to read, not in this episode. This episode is just sort of a kickoff. Dr. Bruce Ivins is innocent. He is innocent. In the continued research of Bruce Ivins, in this cabal, Dr. Lawler, people like Dr. Haigwood and so on around him, the ones that are still on this side of the ground, is going to be extremely revealing. And it may not get any justice. No one's going to go to jail. No one's going to go to jail. There will be no justice, so forget about it. However, someone is going to have to live with this. Someone's going to have to go to sleep thinking about what they've done, and they're going to wake up fearing if that's the day that people are going to find out. And if it's not them, it's going to be their children, and it's going to continue until they repent and until they confess. I'm just part of the system, and if I'm gone, someone else will be doing it. 57 of the most well-informed people on the internet are here right now. Thank you. How are you guys doing? Did any of her exes die? I don't think so. I think she's married to an okay person now that's like an IT administrator at Oregon State. It's not the ex's fault. Obviously, they didn't know what they were getting into. Look, all she needed to do was provide a little bit of doubt. All they needed was one person to say, you know what? He made me uncomfortable. PBS has an article where they've interviewed multiple people who work with Bruce Ivins. Every single one of them said he was a brilliant, quirky sense of humor, animated, a man of faith, a man who was very, very reliable. Every single one of them said that they really liked him. But there was this one person who just happened to be an associate of Fauci. Just one person who said, she said he hunted her down and he was obsessed with this Kappa Kappa all-female sorority. So that he was curious and got upset that she went there and that he spray painted Kappa Kappa on her fence. No one ever saw him do it, by the way. He probably wasn't even in the state, even though he had a brother-in-law that lived like an hour away. Or a brother that lived an hour away. That was obviously the proof, right? That was the proof. That's all the proof that Robert Swamiel III and the FBI needed it, I guess. All they needed was for someone to say that he acted odd, and then that was just pushed. That story was pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And you'll find articles about people who died from the anthrax attack. And the victims were real, by the way. And the articles would say that this woman died, and it's now recognized. And the reason that she died is because of the unhinged, mass-murdering bioterrorist who went off the rails. That's how Ivins is referred to, based upon really no real evidence. One of the biggest pieces of evidence is Haigwood's testimony. There's a little bit of oddity about some of the signatures of the DNA of the anthrax, but I would like people to consider that the case didn't really go to focusing on Bruce Ivins until late 2006, and it just so happens that Bruce Ivins had a research project that was NIAID funded, reviewed by Sina Bavari, and with Dr. Lawler, who was a big fellow with respect to saying it's all Trump's fault many years later. Also working at UNMC, which means he's a longtime associate of both Bavari and other people tied up to that institution. It was really Haigwood's testimony. It was really it. And she was described oftentimes as a graduate student. And you think, look, there's a lot of creepy men out there. There's a lot of creeps. And most people assume that the newspapers would not naturally make up stuff like that. They wouldn't take a man who was married for 30 years and, paint a false picture of him harassing another woman just to blame Amerithrax on him. Would they do something like that? Well, I believe they did. Matter of fact, I know they did. Now, maybe they didn't know themselves what they were in the middle of, but that's what they did. If all of these other individuals came from obscurity and for the most part went back to obscurity, it would be honestly a whole lot less suspicious of the claims made. It would be less things to base on. But this is the whole cabal here in national press. Everyone around him, already working together. And they are all had the same motive: to protect gene therapy and genetic research. That is their number one goal. They all had a shared goal. One of those goals would be to blame all of Amerithrax, all of the anthrax attacks, on one throwaway person. I will read, by the way, her testimony in another show. All right? I didn't want this one to go too long. I really just wanted to seed the field. I'm seeding the field. I want my audience to know how certain I am of this. I want my audience to know how deep this goes. This is not just some story that happened 15 years ago, whatever it is right now, 14 years ago, innocent person being blamed. As awful as that is, sometimes the past happens and it is what it is. The next life is where we'll get sorted out who did what. But in this case, the reason why 50,000 or 100,000 children today are being injected with gene therapy is because justice was never found. The truth was never called out with Bruce Ivins. Every single one of these people who are doing monstrous things right now are doing so because of the non-transparency, because of the lies that were told in a story like this 15 years ago. It wasn't Bruce Ivins. It was a group of people that were caught up in DTRA, which, by the way, Lawler, who worked and probably was a big part of also setting up Ivins with evidence, was working for the White House and was a DTRA contractor going back before then. DTRA literally all over the place, as well as White House and Department of Homeland Security, all part of setting this up. Because this is their vision, this is the dream, this is the hope, this is what they love, this is what they're all about. Cracking the human genome. It is the most, nothing ever has offered more potential for power and immortality. Nothing will get in their way of this. It is a psychosis. I'm not sure it can be broken. No matter how divine we are. It does spook me quite a bit. Instead of things being unraveled, they all said, you know what, let's just blame this guy. And some people in the military probably could have stopped it from happening, but you know what? They allowed it to happen because they were still getting their wars funded, and that's an awful lot of money for defense contractors. Any tips for aspiring researchers? Well, it depends upon where they're coming from. Watch many different shows, get a lot of different opinions. As far as researching techniques go, it takes time. It takes a long time. You need to learn how to be an analyst, really. You need to learn how to view yourself. I want to prove myself wrong more than anyone else. I want to prove myself wrong before someone else does. That keeps you on the edge of the arrow. And you will never love to prove yourself wrong, but when you do, if you can do it before someone else, that means you're still out in front. It seems we get ideas and we want to protect them. It's in our nature to want to protect what we believe. But when you're researching, you actually need to attack what you believe. It is very hard to do. It takes years. But I believe everyone has that capability to do it. It just takes practice. It is a non-natural thing to do. Try to prove yourself wrong. Don't try to prove other people wrong. That's actually easy. That's actually the easy part. The hard part is trying to know how to prove yourself wrong. And I'm always trying to reevaluate. And, if I get something wrong, it's always embarrassing. But you know what? You do it first, and then you say what you don't, and then you say this is the direction we're going in right now. You put it out there, and that's how you can stay out in front. I don't know if that helps or not, but that is, I think, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest tricks that I know. It's really being in competition with yourself, I guess. And as far as all the techniques go, you got to save stuff. You have to know what it is you're getting into. It's a lot of work. I don't think I could do this and another full-time job. I mean, I do some part-time stuff right now. But I couldn't be doing this and still be working a full-time white-collar job. No way. No way. Even if I didn't have family in a house, I don't think I could do it. Not at this level. And it is, you do have to really go all in at some point. So that's a great question, Tyrone. Thank you. Let's see here. Well, I think that's it. Avoid sacred cows. Yeah, there's a few things you don't have to get into. Be respectful. Always maintain that level of respect. You don't have to like, certain ideologies, certain people or whatever. Always take the high road whenever possible. Don't fall into the traps of, and I know some people who really focus a lot on some things, but don't fall into the traps of the hot button political stuff. Oh, and I shockingly, I do not watch a whole lot of current everyday news right now. The everyday news will sap your energy. The little little details of what's going on every day. Oh, they approved it, and the next day they signed off on it, and then the next day they announced a review. Every day it saps your energy. Try to avoid things which are going to sap your energy out. Try to avoid watching. Try to avoid spending a lot of time on things that talk about nonstop impending doom. It does not help. It's good to be aware and alarmed about what's going on. But being reminded over and over again every hour of the day, it will sap your energy. You want as much energy as possible to focus on your research, on proving yourself wrong, on collecting your own resources. Don't give yourself to those other things. And disconnect. And I mean disconnect. Do things around your house, with your family, with your church, whatever the case is. Do other things. You can work many hours a day doing this, but you have to disconnect. And in those times when you're disconnected, you will. It's like sometimes you get too close to something and you can't see through it. You can't see through the information, right? And you could just keep looking and looking and looking, but you don't know how to stand back. And it's not until you take a break, you step away from whatever it is you're analyzing, and you come back, that suddenly now you're looking at it from over here, and you go, I wonder why I couldn't see through that. So you could research different things, but I don't find that to be quite as effective. I think just taking breaks, maintaining your physical health. You don't have to be Charles Atlas, but you just need to be active. You need to get the blood moving around. Ultimately, our brains are connected to all of our mechanics, the heart, the muscles, everything else. So you need those to be healthy to put the healthiness into your brain, if you will. So another thing. I don't know how people do it who have a harder time, who are immobile. I think you still have to find ways, whether it's doing arm exercise or something, to get the heart still moving. Because again, we are ultimately rooted in the physical world here. All right, guys. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go back to doing something else. Matter of fact, I am going to be on John McDuff's show tonight. There's going to be a bunch of Bruce Ivins stuff. There's a lot of things I'm going to be reading. Look at the backstory on him. Get familiar with the fellow. It's just shocking. I just can't believe it. Cannot believe how flimsy the case was against Bruce Ivins. And I think it's because no one thought that this level of corruption was even possible at any level, was at all. That no one ever really looked. But there it is. 1997 article. Unbelievable. 300th episode, by the way. Take care. Thanks for joining.